Hi there, I'm Justin Pritchard, and this video is a used car buyer's guide for anyone considering a second generation Kia Soul, and that's the ones that look like this, and we're talking about the 2014 to 2019 model year, and these hit the road sometime in 2013. So we'll start with an overview of the second generation Kia Soul, a look at some of the specs and features and reasons why you may or may not want to consider one as your next used vehicle, and then we'll get into some model specific checks and tips that you can bring with you into the test drive process, and this is all about helping you find that healthiest secondhand Kia Soul that you can for your dollar. So you'll notice it's styled kind of like an SUV. This comes off in terms of driving like a tall, small car with more headroom and more flexibility and versatility inside. There are all sorts of options for customization, interesting color palette, many different trim levels and optional equipment packages and so on. And this made it really easy for shoppers to choose the perfect Kia Soul to match their needs and budget and lifestyle. So on featured content, you could look for things like interior mood lighting, front and rear heated seats, front seat ventilation, voice command, a sunroof, premium stereo provisions, a backup camera, and plenty more. Interestingly, there was an all-electric Kia Soul available, but the conventional gas-powered models are far more popular, so that's what we're going to focus on today. And on that front, all units were front-wheel drive, 4-cylinder powered, and you can look for a 1.6 or a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with up to 160 horsepower. So based on the feedback of owners and reviewers like myself, you can expect an easy to drive demeanor, commanding driving position, easy maneuverability, and plenty of featured content for the dollar was really the major draw to this vehicle for a lot of shoppers. And complaints tend to center around a low budget feel to some parts of the interior, rougher than expected ride on some surfaces depending on the model and specifically the wheel size, and some drivers wish for a quieter drive as well. Pretty impressive trophy rack for this generation Kia Soul as well. It earned a 5-star safety rating from the NHTSA. The Automobile Journalists Association of Canada called this generation of Kia Soul Canada's best new family car, and numerous industry authorities also chimed in with awards celebrating its popularity and its position as a best buy in its segment. It was also called the Lifestyle Vehicle of the Year, one of the coolest cars for the money, and so on. So let's get into some model-specific checks and tips and information that you can bring with you into your test drive process. And this information comes from online Kia Soul owner forums and Facebook groups, and also from a network of repair professionals and technicians. All right, so first you'll want to see where the specific Kia Soul that you're considering sits in relation to a fairly significant engine recall that affected a couple thousand units with the 1.6-liter engine, and the issue here was an overheating situation that could, in some cases, cause sudden engine failure while you're driving, and that could result in a loss of control in an accident. So like most modern cars, Kia Soul was subjected to a variety of safety recalls. Dealers perform the recall work free of charge because it's designed to fix a latent safety defect. And your best course of action here is to take the vehicle's VIN number to a Kia dealer service advisor, where they can check against a database to see if the particular model that you're considering qualifies for that recall and if the recall's been performed or not. Really good idea to have that looked into, as well as all the other recalls, because it is for your safety. And one note here, recalls sometimes affect every vehicle built, sometimes recalls affect 3 vehicles built. So this doesn't mean that every Kia Soul with the 1.6-liter engine has this recall applied to it. However, in this case, it's about 9,000 units, so definitely worth checking out. And next up, you'll want to inspect the cabin for a water leak, particularly if the Kia Soul you're considering comes equipped with the sunroof. And you're going to do that by stripping all of the floor mats out of the vehicle, get right down to the bare carpeted floor, and then take your hand or a rag or a glove if you like, and press it into as much of the carpeting as you can. The more the better. And what you're looking for is just dampness. If you see wetness on your hand, and especially if you're like pressing your hand into the carpeted surface and water is seeping out, that's a great sign to move to another vehicle. And this is not a common problem, but one that you definitely hear about across all sorts of different makes and models of vehicles. Kia Soul, no exception. The culprit is actually the drainage system in the sunroof above you. And so the sunroof is just a glass panel that sits in a recessed opening, and that recessed opening can collect water. And so to keep that out of the cabin from overflowing or sloshing around, there are drainage holes drilled into that recessed panel, and those are connected to plastic or rubber tubes that are routed down inside the body of the car, and they allow the water to drain out of that recessed panel and just drip harmlessly down onto the road beneath. Problem is, if there's any compromise to that drainage system, usually debris blocking one of the drain holes or getting down into one of those tubes and stopping its ability to drain the water, then that water is going to overflow and find some other way down into your cabin, and most of the time you're going to see it down in the carpeting. Definitely something you want to check into, because dampness and wetness in the carpeting can cause mold, mildew, make the interior of the vehicle smell really bad, rust out the floor, kill your resale value, and on top of that, in some cases it can actually short out electronic equipment as well, and that's not going to be a fun time. Next up, we're going to use an acceleration test to coax warning signs out of potentially bad ignition system components, sensors, or even in the case of the Kia Soul, fuel lines. And so what we want to do for this is give the engine and transmission as many different situations to handle as possible. So what I'd recommend is accelerate from and to a variety of different speeds at a variety of different levels of throttle input. So accelerate slowly from say 40 to 80 kilometers an hour, slow the vehicle down, try again from 20 to 60 kilometers an hour, maybe at full throttle. You're trying to expose the engine to as many different operating parameters as you can. And so while you're accelerating, be on the lookout for signs of rough performance, lumpy performance, sporadic power delivery, signs of the engine struggling. And as you're slowing down to a stop, really be on the lookout for a sensation that the engine is trying to stall out as the vehicle comes to rest. If you notice any of these problems, and especially if there's a check engine light accompanying them, this is a really good reason to have the vehicle checked out by a technician before you buy. Next up, the air conditioning system, and again, a fairly general check for most new cars here. A few owners have reported a few different problems. I mean, there isn't a modern vehicle a couple of years old on the road today that you won't find some owners complaining of AC trouble. In the case of the Kia Soul, I'd say it's important to make sure you turn the system on and off several times during your test drive. Try all the different fan speeds and temperatures. Also important, after your test drive, when the engine's nice and hot, stop the vehicle, put it in park, blast that AC, and just sit there and hang out for a minute or two, making sure that you've got a steady and consistent stream of cold air coming your way. And if you notice any trouble there or elsewhere with the system, another really good reason to have that vehicle checked over by a technician before you buy. So next up, we're going to talk oil consumption, and primarily this affects vehicles with the 2-liter engine. Some owners have reported excessive levels of oil consumption that could even result in engine damage. Many have not. I think this isn't something you've got to panic about, but definitely something to be aware of. So I'd recommend checking the oil before your test drive, as outlined in the owner's manual, and then while you own the vehicle, check it religiously, like every single week. And no one does that because you've got to pop the hood and get a rag and so on. But it's really key here, and especially if the Soul that you're considering is still covered by the powertrain warranty, you're going to want to detect signs of oil consumption like this, if it happens, as soon as possible, so that you can have your dealer investigate, document it, and that might speed future warranty claims if you need them. And finally, remember that the specific instructions for oil changes, how often, what oil to use, what filter to use, are all laid out precisely in the back of the owner's manual. You should follow that to a T. So that's all I've got for you in terms of specific checks and tips for this vehicle: engine recall, water leak inspection, acceleration test, air conditioner, and oil consumption. But I will leave you with the one master tip that sort of supersedes all of these. The number one best thing that you can do to make sure that the used Kia Soul you're considering is as healthy as possible is to have it brought to a dealer, have a technician give it a pre-purchase inspection or PPI. This might take an hour and cost a couple of bucks, but there is no better way to make sure that the vehicle you're considering isn't concealing some potentially pricey problems that might have some nasty plans for your wallet. Well, thank you for watching. My name is Justin Pritchard. Remember that leaving a like and subscribe down below is your way of supporting me in creating even more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.